Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us from. This is a special edition looking at Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey, as most of you may know, was a great Pan-African. He hailed from the island of Jamaica, the reggae island, the island that has produced the likes of the great Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Mutabaruka, and many more. Today, we are zooming in on the life, the legacy of Marcus Garvey. And to help us break down the conversation, we have Dr. Evandra Catherine and Virgil. So Virgil is a PhD candidate. So let me bring up our special guest so at least we can get the ball on the road. So Dr. Catherine, how are you doing?
Good evening, actually. Good morning, like you said, and good afternoon to the great African diaspora where we all are. It's a different time. So greetings, salutations.
Great. So let's bring up Virgil. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, Noah. Good evening and good afternoon.
Good. Yeah. So today we are having an important conversation looking at the life and legacy of I should say, one of Africa's greatest minds, Marcus Garvey. So to start us out, let's go to Dr. Catherine. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Dr. Evandra Catherine. I consider myself an African American Studies and Equity scholar. My life experience, as well as my studies at Virginia Commonwealth University in African American Studies, it was a history that I was given prior to colonization. And when I learned of the amazing, great people that came before us, such as Honorable Marcus Garvey, I became interested in uplifting Pan-Africanism across the U.S. particularly, but across the globe as well. So it's nice to meet everyone this evening, afternoon, and morning.
Great start. So we're gonna go to let's go to Virgil. So Virgil, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I am Virgil Rive Samba Musinga. I'm from the Republic of Congo, where I have been working in the judiciary of my home country just before I moved to the United States. I am also a Ph.D. candidate in public policy and foreign policy. And I'm very excited to be part of this event today and to share the little experience I have about Pan-Africanism.
This is an important man that we're looking at this afternoon, this evening, because I know people will be watching this episode just to learn a little bit more about Marcus Garvey. I know for the western part here in the United States and the territories, Marcus Garvey is somebody who is well known, but on the African continent, of course, there are people who are familiar with the works of Marcus Garvey. So to start us out, let's go to Dr. Catherine. Dr. Catherine, could you share with our audience, viewers around the world, who was Marcus Garvey?
You know, that's a great question, and I wish I had the ultimate authority to say whom he was. But based on my, life experience, my scholarship, I learned about Marcus Garvey as a man that was committed to the entire African diaspora. And Marcus Garvey started out in his travels throughout the Caribbean and South America, Central America, and he just developed this sense of just what it is for the people to rise up. I even believe Marcus Garvey traveled out throughout Europe. Interestingly, he never had an opportunity to step foot on the African continent, but he had quite a bit of travels that influenced his experiences before he came over to the States. And Marcus Garvey was truly about repatriation at its best, right? How do we get all of us whom are here and who have been taken away from our continent to repatriate back to the motherland and rebuild our continent and bring our resources back? And that was his primary goal. And it wasn't really a threat per se to us as people, but he was a serious threat to this country. And when I say a serious threat to the United States, the Federal Bureau of Investigation was essentially created to do reconnaissance on Marcus Garvey and his steamships and his businesses, and really to know the magnitude of what could happen to the United States if Marcus Garvey's plan was to be effective. If all of us Africans left the U.S., there would not be a U.S. And so to answer your question in brief, he was just someone that was here to do what was right for us as people. And he was looking very much so long term. Marcus Garvey was way ahead of his time. If only we could have known the power of what was happening hundreds of years ago when he began seeking to really unify us. So that's just a brief history of Marcus Garvey himself. But I'm sure as we continue to talk about him, I can give more.
Yeah, so I feel like that's a great opening to this icon, this tower of a hero for Black people. Can you just share with because I know like sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. Could you define what Pan-Africanism is?
Pan-Africanism today isn't what it began. Pan-Africanism was about unifying the entire African diaspora. I believe the piece about Pan-Africanism today that's missing is that global connectedness that Pan-African was pushing. No matter where we were across this globe, our conditions were the same. And Pan-Africanism was to bring us together with a focus and an emphasis on the continent. And it was about unity. It was about us having our own defense, our own military, being self-sustaining, our own resources, us creating for us our own agriculture, our food systems, water. It was really for us across the diaspora, wherever we were, to bring all our intelligences, our resources, and unify under one umbrella, under one set of colors, red, black, and green, and the power of symbolism. And here today, we've mixed it all up, right? And what the goal was. But I think that what Pan-Africanism set out to be, and where we are today, we could get there. But again, it's how do we, and in a time where, Noah, we have so much technology and so many ways to connect, we're so much further disconnected than we were when Marcus Garvey was around. He was able to unify millions of us with none of the resources communication resources we have today. That speaks volumes as to where Pan-Africanism has gone. We have allowed technology to disunify us even more than we could possibly ever be, because what Marcus Garvey talked about the most was the negative effects of propaganda. And we have allowed the negative effects of propaganda to do exactly what he said over 100 years ago, right? And that is exactly where we are today. The one thing in itself has torn Pan-Africanism apart is propaganda. And we've got to find a way to not be so public with our efforts and actions and intentions and move what we're trying to do back underground, because as Marcus Garvey was surveilled, all of us who are seeking to get us back to where he had us, we're being surveilled, and we are openly putting out what our efforts are to unify. So that's not Pan-Africanism. So to answer your question, Noah.
Thank you. Yeah, because I think like when you look at the challenge that we have as Black folks is we publicize our intentions for everybody to see. So Marcus Garvey had a plan. He had a game plan to redeem or to restore the African people in their rightful place, so that at least Black people had the dignity, the respect that they deserve. I'm going to transition a little bit and bring up a Ph.D. candidate. This is Judge Virgil. So Judge Virgil, tell us a little bit about yourself.
As I said before, my name is Virgil Rive Samba Musinga. I come from the Republic of Congo, which is a French-speaking country in Central Africa. I'm also a Mandela Washington Fellow 2015. and I'm very excited to be here. I recently published a book, um, which is Africa Must Reunite, and actually, I am in the United States as a Ph.D. candidate in public policy with a concentration on foreign policy.
Yeah, it's good to know. So tell us a little bit about what is the Mandela Washington Fellow?
Mandela Washington Fellowship is an outstanding program that has been launched by the Obama administration in 2014. And the idea is to identify outstanding young African leaders from across the continent and to bring them to the United States so that they can gain some significant expertise in public management, civic leadership, and entrepreneurship so that upon the completion of the program, they can return back home and utilize the expertise gained from across the United States in order to spread the positive change that we need back home in public administration, entrepreneurship, and within the civil society as leaders of non-profit organization standing for the positive change.
Yeah, that's good because I think we need a lot of positive change, especially on the African continent. So now that leads me to a question because I know most people confuse the two Congos, the Congo DR and Congo Brazzaville. Talk a little bit because I know we hear so much about Congo DR on the news and the wealth and just the vastness of all the resources that are out there. And then at the same time, we are very aware of how the corporations in the West, they are plundering the resources out there on the Congo DR side. But tell us a little bit background about Congo Brazzaville.
So, Congo Brazzaville is a francophone country which became independent on August the 15th of 1960. One of the reasons that people are very confused about DRC, which is the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Republic of Congo, where I am from, because basically we belong to the same community, and you will find out that even if the Republic of Congo have been colonized by France and the Democratic Republic of Congo by the Kingdom of Belgium Kingdom, we do share the same culture. We do speak the same languages like Lingala in Congo Brazzaville and in Congo Kinshasa or the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we have a shared history in the past. A long time ago, before the colonization and before the slavery trade, the Republic of Congo and a large part of the Democratic Republic of Congo belonged to the same Congo Kingdom, including in that time the territory of Angola, Cabinda, the Republic of Congo, a large portion of Gabon, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. So that is the big history about both Congo. So the difference is about the colonizer. The Republic of Congo have been colonized by France, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was Zaire in the past under Mobutu, was colonized by the Belgium Kingdom.
Yeah, it's funny how these European countries were able to plunder Africa and just get away with everything. This is why we have the likes of Marcus Garvey and the others. Of course, there's Du Bois and Booker T. Washington and many great Black people who raised the alarm to, especially when you look at the likes of Marcus Garvey, wanting to, I think at some point he was pushing for the Europeans, the French, the Belgians, and the British to leave Africa for Africans. So now we're going to transition a little bit and talk about, because I know you mentioned that you wrote the book. So tell us a little bit about the book that you wrote.
Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So the book I wrote is Africa Must Reunite, and it was inspired by the significant and outstanding commitment of some Pan-African leaders like Marcus Garvey and Dr. Kwame Nkrumah to the common good of our fellow Black people from the globe. So what is very important in this book, as the title says, Africa Must Reunite, is in part borrowed from a statement made by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah on May the 25th of 1963 during the Continental Summit that established the Organization for the African Unity, which is now the African Union since July 2002. So it is a dream of the Africa we want that have been expressed as the African Union Agenda 2063. The important message is just to tell to the Black people across the continent and in the diaspora that the responsibility to build a better future of our continent and to better design the present of Africa is on us. And we do have to come together as the founding fathers of African independencies, including Marcus Garvey, taught us that together we are stronger than ever, and we can make some significant changes in order to live in a safe and beautiful land where everyone will have the opportunity to thrive. So that is all about the book, bringing all together Africans from the continent and from the diaspora to design a better future for the continent with strong and democratic institutions, upholding human rights to raise the continent as a global superpower.
Yeah, so we're going to bring Dr. Catherine also, just to, because now it's going to be an open conversation, talking a little bit about, or rather zooming in on the works of Marcus Garvey. So let's, Dr. Catherine, Marcus Garvey, of course, is a Black folk hero who hails from the island of Jamaica. I love Jamaica because of the reggae music. It's produced a lot of great Pan-Africanism and just a lot of freedom fighters, because I think reggae music has been and it's still being used as a message to empower and to encourage African people, especially, like I remember in South Africa, the apartheid regime had banned music, especially like Peter Tosh, because it's considered as militant. Bob Marley's music, of course, it's widely out there for songs of freedom, like Bob Marley would say. So, Dr. Catherine, Marcus Garvey, what makes Marcus Garvey unique among the many Pan-Africans that we have? Like, what is unique about Marcus Garvey?
No, that's an awesome question. I think I'm going to start with the story of Marcus Garvey that many don't know or aren't aware of. It took place in the early 1900s, 1901.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you're aware of the song that was written that year, and the title of the song was Every Nation Has a Flag But the Coon. And it
Mhm.
was that song where Marcus Garvey took it upon himself and the rest of the UNIA to dispel that fact, because at the time it was in part true. Ethiopia had its flag and colors for the most part, but as a nation across the African diaspora, as a global peoples, we didn't have colors that represented us in the early 1900s. And so that is where we get the red, black, and green flag, or what it was once called the Pan-African flag, which was, it took place in 1920 in New York when we had the Constitution. We also have a song and our flag and our colors. And I think what makes him unique is because he took his time and energy to respond to the attacks on us that were not founded attacks, right? We did not have what the song stated was because we were taken away from the continent. We were removed away from our people. We did not have anything that was unifying us at the time. And in fact, the colonizer was constantly dividing us. And so he's always been a unique and a profound person to me, because I feel that people that actually get up and act and do something is where we get when we make progress. And it was something as simple as him responding back to say, okay, you're right. But what we're going to do is we're going to take care of that. And today, in contemporary times, people have taken the colors and the flag and just misconstrued really what the intent was. I think that we all understand history when we get access and exposure to it. And I think if we knew the power of honoring and revering that flag in the right way, it would have prevented what has happened. And what has happened today in the US, since the flag has been used so much, it's considered public property. So we cannot trademark our flag. We cannot make it the Pan-African flag, right? And that is because we didn't honor and revere this symbol. We allowed it to just go on everything and everywhere. When Marcus Garvey was deported out of this country, and the UNIA was sort of separated and pulled apart, and it lost all of its intended efforts. And so what makes him unique is that he took the mentorship of the Pan-Africans before him. His relationship with Booker T. Washington, many don't know about. But, when he came to the U.S., that was a sort of facilitated by Booker T. Washington when he first got to the States. And I think that he knew the importance of being a follower as he was becoming a leader. He knew the importance of immediate action, not just sitting around, taking care of those things that are being said about us, bringing together, unifying us under one common set of interests. Before the UNIA was torn apart, we were self-sufficient all the way to our own health care. We was in control of our food. We were in control of our livelihood, and we were in numbers across this great country, right? And so that's what makes him unique. He took the resources and the context of the time, and he utilized it for good and formed the UNIA. And it was history after that we're still talking about today.
Yeah, so Vajel, or should I say Judge Vajel, you wrote a book about Marcus Garvey. Why did you choose Marcus Garvey?
Thank you for the question. One of the reasons I chose Marcus Garvey because have been impressed by his significant contribution to the Pan-Africanism. As you know, Marcus Garvey is a great figure among the founding fathers of our movement, and I do appreciate the way that he commits himself to the well-being of his fellow Black people from across the globe. And at the time that he established the Universal Negro Improvement Associations in 1914. At that time, across the continent, only one country was independent, which is Ethiopia. and all the African countries at that time were colonized, and black people in Africa and in the diaspora were struggling in order to be considered equally. They didn't have access to an equal treatment because of the segregation and so on. So his commitment to the well-being of the black people from across the world helped to access to the political independence that we are enjoying today. He started with the creation of an association, and his political commitment inspired a lot of Pan-African leaders like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and many others until we access to independence in the 15 and 16s. And one of the dreams of Marcus Garvey was to bring all the black people together in order to establish a great and unified black nations that he used to call the United States of Africa. And I do believe, not only me, but a lot of scholars used to believe that the creation of African Union, which was in the past the Organization for African Unity, is one of the steps of Marcus Garvey dreams to see that United States of Africa being established and offering the opportunity to all the black people to thrive within the territory of their continent. So that is the reason why I have been inspired, because my book is talking about the Pan-Africanism. It is talking about the continental federalism for black people within the territory of Africa. It was obvious that Marcus Garvey will be listed among those outstanding leaders from the past century who impacted the way that we do understand Pan-Africanism today.
Yeah, Marcus Garvey, I mean, he is just a tower of a figure, the UIA, United Negro Improvement. So what I like about, he was very careful in the selection of the words. United, because Africans have to work as one. We see all kinds of conflict, because you see here on the western part of the world, there is the racial problem. But on the African continent, it's a tribal problem. It's my tribe is bigger than yours and things like that. So united, African people have to be united. And then the choice of the word improvement, because there is no such thing as perfection. You can always better your best. So I like the selection or the choice of words that he used for his organization, United Negro Improvement. So because you can always improve as a people. So we're going to transition a little bit, and when we get back, we're going to bring back Dr. Catherine and to see how we can dive into the conversation and just look at Pan-Africanism and what it means in today's current environment. All right, so Dr. Catherine and soon to be Dr. Vajel.
Thank you.
What is the state of Pan-Africanism? Because Marcus Garvey died some time back I think it was in 1959 or somewhere around there. It's over 50, maybe 60 years. What is the state of Pan-Africanism? Has the vision for Marcus Garvey been realized, or what do we do? What do we need to do?
Yeah, great question. Marcus Garvey actually passed away just a little bit before. It was around 1940 when Marcus Garvey passed away. And, today in the U.S. context, right, I think Virgil can provide that African context. But I think in the U.S. context, there's a small, very, very small individuals that's holding on to Pan-Africanism still. And the louder ones have pushed us away from being able to unify. And I say that here today, the UNIA is still an active organization today in the United States. It's still legally active, it's trademarked. However, as time has gone on, we as Black people, we've heard of that crab in the barrel mentality. The UNIA has split apart. There are several factions of the UNIA operating in the United States today. And the faction that is the most publicly available or seen or viewed or engaged with is not the faction that is a part of Marcus Garvey. And so, as we have always known, those who are louder are loud for a reason. And so what you find is it's hard for particularly my generation and the younger generation to want to come in and revive Pan-Africanism and Marcus Garvey in the US, because when you go and you start to do your research and you seek out these members, this is the wrong faction of the UNIA, and it's not still following the Constitution that Marcus Garvey set for us, right? It's kind of like the Black Panther Party and the new Black Panther Party. It's just two different organizations. And so today what I find is going to be hard in the US, particularly for us to unify and revive Pan-Africanism as the way Marcus Garvey would, is that we have to find a way for these two factions to sit down. I've tried to be a part of effort in facilitating that. Virgil has been a part of that effort in facilitating that to a degree. And we've tried to bring these groups together to figure out what can we do to get under one constitution. But what has held us back in the past, centuries ago, are too many chiefs, right? No one wants to sit down and allow the organization to lead. And what people may not be realize is that the Marcus Garvey's UNIA still has quite a bit of resources that are monetary in value, land, etc. And so is this other faction, right? And so part of what we find is that we don't want to come together is because there are these capitalistic benefits to being a part and to having ownership and being known as President General, etc., right?
Oh yeah.
That's our problem here in the US, right? We don't know as individuals who are seeking Pan-Africanism who to believe and who to trust. And that has been all the plan of the colonizer. So the question remains at the end of this talk, what do we do with all this propaganda and distraction?
Yes. Yeah, what do we do? So Virgil, talk a little bit about the African continent in the context of Marcus Garvey and Pan-Africanism. Where are we? What do we do? Marcus Garvey, thank you, Dr. Catherine, for the correction. So Marcus Garvey died in 49. This is 2022. Where are we in terms of his mission, his goals, his dream on the African continent? Virgil.
Yeah. In addition to what Dr. Evandra said, I will share that in the context of Africa, Pan-Africanism today is on the rise. And the reason why I say that, because actually we can see that young people across the continent and political leaders in Africa have come to a common understanding that it is on Africans to develop the continent, that we have the responsibility to write a different narrative about the continent. And today, more young African leaders across the continent do have the feeling that they do have to return back to the roots and to study the very narrative of the continent, reading some significant writing by some global scholar like Cheikh Anta Diop, who is a Senegal philosopher and Senegalese philosopher, and one of the amazing Pan-African outstanding leaders that we have in the past century. So, and we also see that a lot of African platforms have been established in the past decade and bringing together Black people across the continent and from the diaspora in order to discuss the better way and to identify sustainable solutions that we can put in place for more democracy in Africa, to upward human rights and make sure that everyone will have a chance to live peacefully in Africa without putting their lives in jeopardy, trying, for instance, to go to Europe and to find the better future over there. So that consciousness of young African leaders is very significant today that it was maybe 2 decades before. We still have a long way to go, but for sure, I can say that we are moving forward to what was the dream of Marcus Garvey, to bring all the Black people together and to establish the foundations of an African nation for everyone.
Can I chime in there, Noah?
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Dr. Catherine.
Thank you for making those points, Virgil, because, you know, here in the United States, that's part of our also problem, right? This idea of political leaders being able to engage with the youth in the community, right? Even when a white man, Bernie Sanders, right? Even when he came and brought a different ideology, socialism, right? It didn't even, it wouldn't, the powers that be wouldn't allow it to be. And that was a moment and where many of us were activated, and Black folk, right? It showed you the power of us when there's an ideology that we feel is liberating and that we can believe in. And on the continent, I'm so happy to hear, Virgil, that you have that sort of commonality, because in the US, a Black political figure has most likely sold their soul to the oppressor. And he is going to continue, or she is going to continue to push the message of white supremacy. And it's just unfortunate for us here in the US, because we have great Black leaders, but if they go against the status quo, it doesn't matter how far they will get, they will never get there, right? Stacey Abrams is a key example of that in the United States. You know, President Obama fell in the middle. He was very moderate. President Obama wasn't very far left at all, right? And it's this idea of keeping with the status quo and with white supremacy and maintaining the system, as opposed to if we could get a set of political figures and leaders that could really guide what's going to happen next, we will see what we saw, that political revolution that Bernie Sanders spoke to, right? That is what we need in the US, and it's going to take a political leader to do so.
Yeah, I think we are seeing, I'm happy with what I'm seeing on the African continent. And then I again, thank you. I think I said Marcus Garvey died in 1949. It's actually 1940. Thank you for that correction. It's most of our people, like I think here on this part of the world of the United States, they have what they call the Uncle Toms, people who always sell out. And also on the African continent, I think sometimes greed and corruption compromises most people's integrity, and in the process, they end up becoming a problem. So I think we really need to do a lot as Black people, regardless of wherever we are, because I think our fate, our identity is the same. Because when I'm walking down on the street, nobody sees that this guy is from Africa. Or when Dr. Catherine is walking down the street, they just say, oh, that's a Black woman, that's a Black man. So I think our fate, our consequences are pretty much the same. So this is why I think when the likes of Marcus Garvey pushing for the unification of some sort under the Universal Negro Improvement Association was to bring African people to be on the same page, to discuss, to dialogue, to ensure that we as African people are doing everything possible to improve our own state of affairs. Because I think the challenge that most people is, we think European countries or the United States and the others, they have our best interests at heart. That could not be far from the truth. Yeah, so as we are finalizing, heading towards the end of the program, so let's go to Virgil. Tell our viewers, our listeners around the world, when they expect your book and where they can find your book.
Thank you so much. Actually, the book is available online. They can purchase it from Amazon. The selling price is $17.99, so almost $17. It is available on Amazon. They can, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Evandra. She already got a copy of the book. Um, it is available. They can get it from Amazon, as I said. Um, it is very important for them to uh, read and learn from the critical approach that I use in the book. It is an account of several theories of Pan-Africanism that we are discussing back home, across the continent, even from the diaspora. And the vision that I share in this book is the common vision that every single person from African descent does have about the future of our continent. In the West here, we will say that people had the opportunity to establish a republic with liberal values and borrowed from the Christian tradition. Back home, we also have a lot of concepts from natural law conceptions of African leaders that we can share all together to grow as one nation, sharing the same values, sharing the same commitment for a better future of our populations.
Yeah, thank you, Virgil, for that. So, as we are now sort of in the home stretch, let's go to Dr. Catherine. Dr. Catherine, what is your final thought? What would you like our viewers, listeners around the world to learn about Marcus Garvey?
Well, there's a lot to learn about him, but I think the one thing that's most important is the unity piece, right? That idea of us having a common interest. And I think that we are afraid of repatriation. And it's really what we need to do. Marcus Garvey, that is what he wanted to do. I believe I've heard accounts of him even having conversations at one time with the KKK because there was a common interest of getting us out of here, right? And I think that we need to not fear our home. We need not to fear what our bodies need. It is no wonder that Black folk are the leading cause of everything negative in this country, because this continent cannot support nor sustain our spiritual health, our mental health, our physical health, or any of it. And what most people need to learn about Marcus Garvey is that it wasn't just running away from slavery. It was running ourselves back to what he knew could produce generations and generations of thinking people. We are a group of thinking people, and we need to get back to being from a culture of thinking people. And that is what Marcus Garvey wanted us to do.
Thank you, Dr. Catherine. Let's go to Virgil. Virgil, what's your take? What do you want the viewers, the listeners? I know they have to get the book. They have to get the book. So go ahead.
Thank you so much. There is something that I like to share with people when it comes to conversation about human rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that have been enacted under the United Nations Organization on December the 10th of 1948. There is something that people don't know. Long time before the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the UN, thanks to the commitment of Marcus Garvey, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, we had a Universal Declaration of Negro Civil Rights. It was in 1920. And I can say that with that significant achievement, Marcus Garvey gave the opportunity to people from across the globe. That is very important to emphasize, an opportunity to understand that his commitment was not only for Black people. He came with an inclusive conception of the brotherhood, saying that whether we are black, white, yellow, we are all brothers and sisters under one God, and we belong to the same God. And as human beings with souls, we do have the divine law inscribed in our souls, and that's why it came with that very important piece. And I will say that most of the time, when we talk about the movement, the universal movement of human rights, people used to refer to the Declaration of Civil Rights that have been enacted in France in 1789, but they forgot the contribution of Black people, like Marcus Garvey with the Constitution of UNII, the Universal Declaration of Negro Civil Rights, but also some other important pieces of legislation that we have long time before the slavery. So that's my intake of the legacy of Marcus Garvey. Thank you.
Dr. Catherine, it's been a pleasure. Vachel, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Noah.
Yeah, I look forward to bringing you guys back to our conversation, just to see how the book is doing and just to keep the conversation, because just like in the spirit of Marcus Garvey, as African people, as Black people, we have to work together. I like his motto: one God, one aim, one destiny. Yeah, so thank you folks for joining us.